Coming back from the mission felt like waking up from a nightmare. All I could think about was seeing Julia, smelling her scent, sleeping in my own bed, 8 months away, surrounded by dust, noise, and longing. She was my reason to come back in one piece. When I opened the door, I felt her perfume in the air. Everything seemed the same. Until I heard a different sound. Scene 1. I still remember the smell. Her perfume. That floral sweet scent that clung to the pillow. I put that pillow inside a plastic bag before leaving, like it was a piece of her I could carry with me. On the worst days, when gunfire made my ears ring and the heat stuck to my uniform, I'd open that bag and breathe deep. Was it pathetic? Maybe. But it worked. Because out there, in that hell of dust and fear, Julia's perfume was the only thing reminding me there was still a safe place in the world. Today, I'm ashamed to admit that. Ashamed to remember how much I believed. Because the truth is, while I was out there carrying her scent like some kind of charm, she was back here wearing that same perfume for another guy. In my bed. When I got back from the mission, the first thing I felt when I opened the door was that smell. Except this time, it didn't bring relief. It brought disgust. Because seconds later, I heard the sound. A muffled laugh coming from the bedroom. The bed creaking. My body knew before my mind accepted it. I pushed the door open. There was a naked man in my bed, and she was wrapped in the navy blue sheet, screaming, "It's not what it looks like. He's my cousin." Cousin. I wanted to laugh, that sick kind of laugh, but it got stuck in my throat, choked down along with everything I still believed in. I didn't say a word. I just grabbed my backpack and left. She came after me, crying, trying to explain. But I didn't look back, because if I did, some stupid part of me might still want to believe her. Again. Always. Scene 2. Before everything fell apart, we had a routine. That kind of boring but comforting routine you only realize was precious after it's gone. Breakfast every day at 5:40 in the morning. I always woke up first. The alarm would ring low, and I'd drag myself to the kitchen with my eyes still glued shut. I'd boil water, grab the loaf of bread from the cabinet, spread butter without even trying to make it perfect. She'd wake up about 10 minutes later, in an oversized t-shirt, that gray t-shirt of mine she stole in our second week of dating, and pajama shorts. Hair tied up in any way, no makeup, no filter, just her. And that was the moment I liked most. She'd walk into the kitchen dragging her feet, rest her chin on my shoulder from behind, and stay there, breathing slow, while the sound of silverware clinking on the plate filled the silence. "Be careful today," she'd say, still half hoarse with sleep. "Always am," I'd answer, every time. I'd adjust my boots, tighten the belt on my uniform, and she'd watch me from the doorway, arms crossed, with that half smile that looked like it said, "Come back in one piece." Sometimes she'd run her hand along my face, smoothing the stubble, and say, "You need to shave." "I know. But you still look good like that." I'd kiss her forehead before leaving, and that chamomile shampoo smell stuck to me the whole day. It was a silly ritual, but it was ours, and I thought that was safety. I thought that as long as we had that breakfast, that goodbye kiss, that be careful, nothing bad could happen. The bed was another symbol. We bought it together in one of those giant mall stores, on a Saturday afternoon. She lay down on 5 different models, testing the softness, making that exaggerated concentration face like she was choosing our future. "This one's good, but it sinks too much," she'd say, rolling from side to side. "Julia, you already tried like 10. Just pick one," I'd tease. But truth was, I loved seeing her that excited. When we finally chose one, she sat on the edge of the mattress, patted the space beside her, and said, "Come here. Lie down with me." I lay down. There in the middle of the store. People walking by. Salespeople offering discounts. A kid crying down the aisle. She turned to me, lying on her side, head propped on her hand. "We deserve to sleep well," she said, smiling. And I believed it. I believed that piece of wood, mattress and foam was a physical promise, a place that was just ours. We talked about the future there, in that bed. lying on our sides, facing each other, her tracing my eyebrow with her finger while talking about buying a bigger apartment, maybe getting a dog, maybe one day a house with a yard. "When you come back from this mission, we're gonna live somewhere better," she promised one night before I shipped out. "Promise you'll wait for me?" I asked, half joking, half serious. She stayed quiet for a few seconds, just looking at me. Then she kissed my nose and whispered, "I promise." I held her hand, fingers intertwined, feeling the simple ring I'd given her on our 1-year anniversary. "I love you," I said. "Love you too." And I believed it. Again. Always. There was a photo of us stuck to the fridge door, taken on a beach day months before the mission. She in a bikini, me in shorts, both of us soaked, smiling like the world was perfect. Every day when I grabbed my water bottle before heading out, I'd look at that photo, and I'd think, this is why I do what I do, for her, for us. The problem is that promises are easy to make when the person doesn't know they're going to break them. And that photo on the fridge, the one I thought was a reminder of happy days, became just another piece of paper I couldn't look at without my stomach turning. Scene 3. I met the distant cousin at a family barbecue. It was before the mission, on a blazing hot Saturday. The kind of heat so strong even the shade feels useless. Her family had rented a small place in the countryside, far from the city, with that smell of wet grass mixed with barbecue smoke. White plastic tables, kids running around barefoot, music way too loud, the kind you have to yell over to talk, uncle arguing about politics, aunt offering dessert before lunch even came out. I was at the grill helping her brother-in-law flip the meat when she showed up. Julia came running across the lawn, pulling some guy by the arm, with that wide smile she always used when she wanted to introduce me to someone. "Baby, this is Lucas, my cousin from—" She said the name of some town I didn't catch, because right then I noticed one thing. He was way too familiar. His hand on her shoulder. The way she laughed at his jokes, throwing her head back. That exaggerated closeness like they were childhood best friends, not distant cousins who barely saw each other. I shook his hand, firm but controlled. "Nice to meet you, man," he said, with that tone of someone who calls you man before even knowing you. He had that annoyingly easy smile. White teeth, neat haircut, clean-shaven, shirt unbuttoned at the chest. Looked like a beer commercial actor. "Same here," I said, trying to sound casual. I went back to the grill, but I couldn't stop watching. They went to a corner of the yard near a big tree, where a hammock was tied up. She sat on the hammock, rocking softly, and he stood beside her, leaning in, saying something I couldn't hear. But I saw her laugh, saw his hand touching her shoulder, staying a second longer than needed, saw her tapping his arm the "oh, stop it" way that didn't stop anything. I squeezed the spatula handle so hard my hand went white. The smell of meat burning a little too much on the grill. The beer sweating in my hand. The feeling that I was the guest and not the boyfriend. Later, when we sat down to eat, he sat next to her. I sat across from them, trying to focus on rice and farafa. But I couldn't stop noticing the little things. The way he leaned in to talk in her ear. The way she grabbed his phone to show him something like it was nothing. The way they shared the same soda bottle without asking, without thinking twice. At one point, her uncle yelled across the table, "So, Lucas, you dating anyone or still single?" He laughed. "Single, uncle? But I'm chill like that." "A handsome guy like you shouldn't be alone." Julia laughed too, nudging his arm again. "He's too picky, uncle. That's why he doesn't find anyone." And the two laughed together like some inside joke. I pretended I didn't care, stuffing more meat in my mouth, but the knot in my throat wouldn't go down. In the car on the way back, I brought it up. "You never talked about him like that. Seems like you two are pretty close." She laughed. That superior kind of laugh that hurts more than yelling. "Oh my God, babe. You jealous of my cousin. Seriously. It's not jealousy, it's just, you seemed really close. Because we are close. We grew up together. Spent vacations together. He's like a brother to me." Didn't look very brotherly to me. She turned to me like she couldn't believe what she heard. "Oh, stop. You hang around men all day at the base and now you're freaking out because I talked to a cousin." I kept quiet. And ashamed. Ashamed of feeling what I felt. Ashamed of seeming insecure. Ashamed of questioning. I swallowed it like it was weakness, like the problem was me, not what I saw. Today, I know that was the first sign, and I ignored it, because believing her was easier than facing the possibility that she was lying straight to my face, and because, deep down, I was scared. Scared that if I pushed it, I'd find something I didn't want to know. So I chose the comfort of denial. I chose to believe the problem was my jealousy, not the distant cousin laughing with her like I wasn't even there. And that choice later cost more than any war I've fought. Scene 4. During the mission, the video calls started to change. At first, she called every day, sometimes just to show what she made for lunch, or to complain about the heat, or just to see me. "I miss you," she'd say, with that look of someone who really feels it. "Miss you too, but it'll pass soon." Except soon never came, and the calls started getting shorter, camera off, quick replies. "I'm tired, babe. The internet's bad here. Went out with the girls, got home late." Every time I tried to push a little, she dodged. "You okay?" I asked one night, after a call that barely lasted 3 minutes. "I'm fine. Why are you asking that?" "I don't know. You seem distant." She sighed. That tired sigh like she thinks you're overreacting. "Babe, you've been gone for months. I'm trying to live my life here. I can't freeze everything just because you're not around." That cut me, but it made sense, or at least I convinced myself it did. One night, after another cold call, a guy from the barracks sat on the bed next to mine. "Dude, do a test." "What test?" "Loyalty test. Get someone to flirt with her, see how far she goes." I stared at the ceiling, listening to the old fan turning. I grabbed my phone, opened the messaging app, started typing. "Hey Julia, how are you? Saw you at that barbecue." My finger froze, screen glowing, sweat running down my back under the vest I still hadn't taken off. I erased everything, because I thought, if I do this, no matter what she answers, I already lost the fight with myself. I chose to trust, and that choice later became my biggest shame. Scene 5. I met Julia in a simple bar, one of those places with more plastic chairs than space to walk, where the floor is cold cement and the walls have old beer posters stuck on with tape. It was a Friday night, end of September. I'd just gotten back from a short mission, 3 months away, and I was still lost between that world and this one. I woke up at night tense, thinking I heard something. I couldn't stay in crowded places without feeling this weird tightness in my chest. My friend Rodrigo insisted I go out. "Man, you need to see people. Remember, life isn't just uniforms and barracks." I went without wanting to, threw on some random t-shirt, jeans, and went with him more out of friendship than actual desire. The bar was small, tight, with maybe 10 or 12 tables squeezed together. Old TV hanging in the corner, blasting a soccer game too loud. Smell of fried food, spilled beer on the floor, people yelling "goal" at the wrong times. We sat near the counter, and Rodrigo immediately ordered 2 cold beers and a plate of pork rinds. I watched the game without really watching, my mind still far away, when she walked in. It wasn't a movie scene. No music rising, no special lights, no slow motion. But when she came through that door and walked to the counter, something inside me woke up. She was alone, hair down to her shoulders, a warm shade of brown catching the dim bar light. Simple black top, jeans, worn white sneakers. Nothing flashy, nothing overdressed. But there was something about her that pulled your eyes in. She sat on a stool at the counter, grabbed her phone, messing with it while holding a glass of soda. Sometimes she'd look up, glance at the TV, then back to her phone. Rodrigo noticed I was staring. "Go talk to her, man." "No." "Why not?" "'Cause I don't know what to say." "Nobody knows. You make it up on the spot." He laughed and nudged my shoulder. I stayed there frozen, drinking beer and trying to convince myself it was better to stay quiet. But every few minutes, I looked again. And one of those times, she looked up and locked eyes with me. For 2 seconds, maybe 3, we stayed like that, staring at each other. Nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic. But there was that click. That stupid click you pretend doesn't exist. But it does. She gave a half smile. That shy kind of smile from someone caught looking, then went back to her phone. I took a deep breath, finished my beer in one gulp, and stood up. Rodrigo slapped the table like he'd just won something. "That's it, soldier. Go." I walked to the counter trying to look casual, even though my heart was beating all weird. I sat on the stool next to her, leaning on the counter, pretending I was deciding what to order. She looked at me from the corner of her eye. "You're military, right?" she said before I could even speak. I turned to her, surprised. "Is it that obvious?" She smiled, a half-crooked, playful smile. "A little. The haircut gives it away. And the posture, too. My dad loved war movies," she said, swirling the ice in her glass. "He watched all those classics, you know? Saving Private Ryan, Full Metal Jacket, those ones. He still watches?" She shook her head. "No, he died about 3 years ago." "I'm sorry." "It's okay. It was hard, but we keep going, right?" She shrugged, and I could tell it still hurt, but she'd learned to carry it. I started, but she cut me off. "Julia. My name's Julia." She held out her hand and I shook it. Her hand was small, warm, stayed in mine a second longer than needed. "And you?" My name is—" I said it, and she repeated it like she was testing how it sounded. "Nice." We started talking. About everything and nothing. About how she thought her life was boring, working in a small office making spreadsheets all day. About how I thought my life was too heavy, carrying things I couldn't tell anyone. "You look like someone carrying the world on your shoulders," she said, tracing the rim of her glass, looking at me with those dark eyes like she saw more than I was showing. "Feels like it sometimes." "Then rest a little." She said it so simply, so straight, I almost believed it was possible. We stayed there until the bar started emptying. Rodrigo had left long before, giving me a discreet thumbs up when he saw we were talking. The game was over. Chairs were being stacked, the owner wiping down the counter with that "please go home" face. "I think we should go," she said, checking her phone. "Yeah, think so." We walked out together. The street was quiet, empty, just the distant sound of a car somewhere. The night air was cool, and I felt that relief of leaving the bar's heat. "Can I take you home?" I asked, not sure where the courage came from. She laughed. "You got a car?" "I've got a bike. Even better." And that was that. Simple, direct, kinda dumb. I gave her a ride that night. She got on the back seat, held tight around my waist, and I rode slow through the empty streets. When we stopped in front of her building, she got off but didn't go in right away. She stayed there, holding the helmet, looking at me with that half-smile. "I don't know if I can handle a guy in uniform," she said, tilting her head. "But I can try. You want to try?" "Yeah." She typed her number into my phone, and before heading up, she gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Call me tomorrow." "I will." And I did. The next day, and the next, and the next. Soon we were together every weekend, then every day, and in less than a year came the bed. Our bed. 12 installments. "We deserve to sleep well," she said, hugging me in the store while choosing the mattress. I believed that piece of wood and foam was a physical promise. A safe place. Our place. I thought I'd found someone who saw me beyond the uniform. Someone who understood the weight I carried without needing an explanation. Someone who, when I got home, would make the world stop hurting. And for a while, that's exactly what she was. She was the good part of my life. The part that worked. The part that made sense. Until the day it didn't anymore. The irony chokes me even now. Because that woman I met in a simple bar, the one who told me rest a little, was the same one who kept me awake for months after I got back. And that bed we bought together, believing it was our safe place in the world, became the stage for the worst scene I ever lived. Scene 6. The night before coming home, I couldn't sleep. The barracks were quieter than usual. Some guys had already left, others were on duty. I lay on that hard mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling, trying to picture the scene of my return. Me walking into the house, dropping my backpack, her jumping into my arms. That hug that feels like it glues the pieces, war knocks loose. I held the ring between my fingers. Cold metal. Sweaty in my palm. I thought about our soft mattress, the pillow with her perfume, the quiet of the house at night. That was what waited for me. At least that's what I believed. The light rain hit the roof of the base, and I held onto that image like it was a charm. She's the only clean part of my life. I repeated that to myself until I almost believed the world made sense. The next day, I boarded the flight back. And the world, in fact, stopped making sense. Scene 7. The night before coming home, I couldn't sleep. The barracks were quieter than usual. Half the guys had shipped out the day before. The other half were on duty, or out for a last walk before leaving. I lay on the hard bunk mattress, staring at the cracked ceiling, hands behind my head, trying to picture the scene of my return. It was like I could direct the whole thing in my head, put the characters in place, adjust the light, pick the soundtrack. Me walking into the house, dropping my heavy backpack on the living room floor, her hearing the noise, coming out of the bedroom, barefoot, in an oversized t-shirt, with that smile that looked like it lit everything up, running to me, jumping into my arms, that hug that glues the pieces war knocks loose. I held onto that image like it was a charm, like if I repeated it enough, it would become real, guaranteed, safe. I grabbed the ring I carried on a chain around my neck. Cold metal, sweaty in my palm. I bought it right after our 1-year anniversary. Nothing expensive, not gold. Just simple silver, with a phrase engraved inside that she didn't even know about. Come back to me. I promised myself that when I returned, I'd propose for real. On one knee, ring in hand. The cheesy way she said she hated, but that I knew deep down she'd love. I thought about our soft mattress, the pillow with her perfume, the quiet of the house at night, just the fan turning slowly. I thought about lying on my side, facing her and saying, I'm back, and she'd say, I knew you'd come back. That was what waited for me. At least that's what I believed. The thin rain hit the roof of the barracks, that repetitive, almost hypnotic sound that was supposed to calm me down but only kept me awake. I stared at the dirty window, watching the drops slide down slowly, trying to convince myself everything would be fine, that she'd waited, that the distance wasn't strong enough to break what we had, that the silences in the video calls were just tiredness, that the cold messages were just a busy routine, that the distant cousin was just a distant cousin. I held on to that image of us like it was the last clean thing I had left. She's the only good part of my life, I whispered to myself in the dark. I repeated it until I almost believed the world made sense, until I almost believed that when I opened that door, everything would be in place. I closed my eyes, trying to force sleep. But sleep never came. Only the image of her smiling, and the promise that in less than 24 hours, I'd be back. The next day, I boarded the flight home, and the world, in fact, stopped making sense. Scene 8. When I got back, I stepped off the bus alone. No reception, no flag, no music, no hug. Just me, my heavy backpack, and the sticky heat making the uniform feel even heavier. I grabbed a cab home. The driver was an older guy, maybe 60, with that tired look of someone who's been behind the wheel all day. He tried to make small talk. Coming back from a trip. From a mission. Oh, military. Must be hard, huh? Being away from family, from your woman. Yeah. He noticed I didn't want to talk and gave up, turned on the radio, some country song I didn't know, and stayed quiet the rest of the way. I looked out the window, watching the city go by. Everything looked the same. The streets, the buildings, people rushing down the sidewalks. But something in me already knew nothing would be the same. That strange feeling in my chest, like some part of me was trying to warn me about something my mind still refused to accept. When the taxi stopped in front of the building, I paid fast, grabbed my backpack, and got out. I stood there for a few seconds, staring at the glass door of the building, my heart beating faster than it should. I took a deep breath. Calm down. You're just anxious. That's normal. I climbed the stairs slowly, one hand holding the backpack, the other gripping the key. Each step felt heavier than the last. When I got to our floor, I stopped in front of the door, rested my forehead against the cold wood for a second, eyes closed. She's on the other side, I thought. She's waiting for you. I turned the key slowly, listening to the lock click open. Pushed the door. Her perfume hit me first. That sweet, floral scent I'd kept on a pillow in the barracks. But this time, the smell was stronger than usual. Like she'd been there just moments before. Like the air was still saturated with it. In the living room, everything looked the same. Sofa with the blue throw folded on the arm, mug on the shelf, the same one I left before I went away. Her slippers tossed carelessly near the door. For a few seconds, the world made sense. Until I heard it. A muffled sound coming from the bedroom. A quiet laugh, half cut off, half embarrassed. And then the unmistakable sound of the mattress dipping under someone's weight. My body reacted before my mind did. Military instinct. Walk slow, stick close to the wall, breathe steady, make no noise. Each step felt like a delayed gunshot. My heart was pounding so hard I could almost hear it from the outside. Sweaty hand on the doorknob. Breath held. I pushed the door. And time didn't just stop. It shattered. There was a naked man in my bed. In the bed I paid for in 12 installments. In the bed I thought was my safe place in the world. Navy blue sheet wrinkled, covering half his body. The room was dim, only the light from the half-open window illuminating the scene. And her, Julia, wrapped in the same sheet, bare shoulders, messy hair, wide eyes like she'd seen a ghost. Mouth open. Screaming my name like I was the one in the wrong. "It's not what it looks like," she yelled. A reflex so automatic it almost synced with my shock. She held the sheet against her chest like that could hide what I'd already seen. Like it could undo the scene. "He's my cousin. He came to visit a friend. I swear, it's not what you're thinking." For a second, I felt like laughing. That sick, absurd kind of laugh from someone who knows they're living something so ridiculous it feels like a badly written script. But the laugh stuck in my throat, choked along with everything I still believed. I looked at him, recognized his face instantly. The distant cousin from the barbecue. The guy who laughed at her jokes, who put his hand on her shoulder a second longer than needed. The guy she said was just family. He didn't say a thing. Just sat there, looking at me with that face of someone caught doing something wrong but not sure what to say. No shirt. No excuse. No shame. I looked at her. The perfume I carried for 8 months was now soaked into the room, mixed with sweat and fresh shower scent. The creak of the door opening still echoed through the heavy silence. The light from the window cast a thin line on the floor, splitting the room in two. Me on one side, them on the other. I didn't say anything, didn't yell, didn't ask, didn't swing, just felt a strange emptiness eating me from the inside, like some part of me had been ripped out and thrown away. I grabbed my backpack from the floor, turned my back, and left. She came after me, crying, clutching the sheet with one hand and reaching for me with the other. "Wait, please. You didn't understand. It was a mistake, I swear. I didn't want this to happen." Her footsteps behind me, her voice cracking, tears streaming. "Please listen to me. Give me a chance. Let me explain." I didn't look back. Because if I did, I'd see the woman I loved crying. And some stupid part of me would still want to believe her. Again. Always. I went down the stairs fast, the backpack hitting my back, and her sobs echoing in the hallway. When I reached the street, I stopped, breathed, the hot afternoon air hitting my face. Cars passing. Life going on like nothing had happened. And for the first time in 8 months, I didn't feel relieved to be home. I felt like I didn't have a home anymore. Scene 9. I spent the first few days after catching them in the barracks. Not because I had to be there, but because I didn't know where else to go. Hard bunk bed, smell of cheap disinfectant, the sound of other soldiers snoring. It was easier to sleep there than anywhere else, because there, at least, I didn't have to pretend I was okay. I woke up sweating, but not from war nightmares. I woke up with the image of the wrinkled blue sheet, that cousin's face, Julia's voice saying, "It's not what it looks like." Sometimes I laughed alone, a nervous laugh, that ugly kind that comes mixed with the urge to cry. I thought, if this was a TV show, viewers would complain it's too exaggerated. She tried to talk to me. Calls I didn't answer. Long messages I didn't read. 2-minute voice notes I didn't play. I wasn't ready to hear any explanation. And at the same time, I was dying to know what excuse she'd come up with next. But you know, when you're so hurt, you'd rather hold on to the clear image of the betrayal than risk hearing something that might confuse you. I stayed there, in that limbo, between wanting to know and being afraid to hear, between hating her and still missing her. The backpack stayed on the floor beside the bunk. I'd look at it and remember, 8 months carrying that thing on my back, thinking I was coming home. But I didn't have a home anymore, just a dismantled bed in my head and a perfume that now made me sick. That's when Carolina showed up. Scene 10. One day after duty, the sergeant said, "There's a girl waiting for you outside." It was her. Carolina, Julia's younger sister. Simple jeans, white t-shirt, hair tied in a messy bun. She held a grocery bag with both hands, gripping the straps like a shield. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" she asked, not quite looking at me. I took her to the barracks. We sat on plastic chairs facing each other. The ceiling fan made an annoying noise, pushing hot air around. She opened the bag. Homemade food. "My mom sent it. She heard you were here and—" "Yeah." For a few seconds, neither of us said anything. Then she took a breath and looked at me in a way Julia hadn't in a long time, straight, without looking away. "I'm not here to defend her," Carolina said, her voice shaking a little. "But I'm also not here to make you hate everyone." That disarmed me. I told her what I'd seen. She didn't ask, "Are you sure?" Didn't ask. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. She just listened. And sometimes listening is the only thing someone shattered can handle. She fidgeted with her bag strap while I talked, eyes on the floor, like she was carrying her sister's shame herself. "I'm sorry," she said when I finished. "It's not your fault." "I know. But still. I'm sorry." She started visiting more often. Sometimes with another bag of food, another excuse to show up. I was nearby. "My mom sent this. I got worried. You disappeared from the family chat." We talked very little about Julia. When her name came up, the whole atmosphere shifted, like the lights turned colder. But Carolina didn't push. She just stayed. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a complete idiot. Scene 11. Things don't happen all at once. They slide slowly until, when you notice, you've already crossed a line and can't pinpoint when it happened. One of those nights, the barracks were emptier than usual. Some guys were out, others on duty. I was there with Carolina, sitting side by side, sharing a meal in silence. She put on some soft music on her phone, one of those generic, calm songs playlists that sound like teen drama background tracks. The lamp we improvised cast a tired yellow tone on the room. At some point, our knees touched. Nobody pulled away. I felt the air get heavier, like something unspoken was sitting between us. She looked at me. Steady gaze, but with an apology she didn't say out loud. "You don't deserve what happened," she whispered. That hit me in a strange way. It was the first time someone said that without a but after. "No, but maybe you should have paid more attention." "No, but long-distance relationships are hard." "No, but just, you don't deserve it." And I didn't even know if I did or didn't anymore. Because right there, with her so close, I was about to cross a line I theoretically shouldn't cross. Her sister. The sister of the woman who cheated on me. I knew it was wrong. Knew that if I let it happen, it wouldn't be comfort. It'd be revenge disguised as healing. But at the same time, I remembered the wrinkled blue sheet, the cousin naked in my bed. Julia's voice saying, "It's not what it looks like." And I thought, if she crossed the line first, then I have the right. There was no explicit scene. No old-fashioned romance. Just two hurt adults leaning on each other, crossing lines they weren't supposed to. And here's where people like to point fingers. "Oh, so you got revenge. You did the same thing." That night, I asked myself the same. Was I looking for comfort or payback, trying to heal or trying to hurt back? The honest answer? Maybe a bit of everything. And that's why, when Julia called me a traitor later, it hurt less than it should have. Because some ugly part of me agreed. Scene 12. The day of the final confrontation had no soundtrack. There was honking outside, people talking loud in the hallway, and some TV playing a random game somewhere. I had left the barracks and moved into a small temporary apartment. A single bed, an old wardrobe, and an extra mattress leaning against the wall. Someone knocked on the door hard. 3 knocks, the kind that show up accusing already. I opened it. It was Julia, hair tied messily, swollen face, red eyes, a mix of anger and desperation. "So that's it," she started, without even breathing. "You disappear, don't talk to me, and now you're with my sister." She walked in without asking, pacing around the room, arms crossed, like she owned the place. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to my family? To yours too." I leaned against the wall and let her talk. Maybe because I wanted to see how far she'd go. "You're a traitor," she spat. "I messed up, okay? I know I messed up. But it wasn't serious with Lucas. There was nothing there. It was just, I was lonely, I was by myself, you weren't here." She built the narrative right there in front of me, turning betrayal into loneliness, turning choices into a moment of weakness. "But you, getting involved with my sister, you crossed every line." Maybe that should have been the moment I exploded, thrown the blue sheet in her face, the naked cousin, the cold messages during the mission. But instead, I felt like laughing. A tired, humorless laugh from someone who can't believe what he's hearing. "I'm the traitor," I repeated slowly, testing the phrase. "Yes, you are." She was so sure of her version that for a second, I thought maybe I was the one going crazy. Then I remembered the bedroom door, the naked body in my bed, the "it's not what it looks like." I looked straight into her eyes and said the only thing that made sense, "I learned from the best." The silence after that was heavy. It wasn't a scene of shouting, things breaking, neighbors listening. It was just her standing there, speechless, without a script ready to throw back. For a moment, the mask slipped. I saw guilt, saw fear, saw someone who, just like me, had crossed a line and didn't know how to undo it. She left without a dramatic speech, a few tears, a vague threat about the family never being the same, and the door slamming at the end, like a period on a chapter I never asked to live. The TV from a neighbor kept playing somewhere. Life outside kept going, and I stood there, leaning on the wall, trying to figure out if I'd won or lost that war. Scene 13. Today, when I tell this story, people always ask, "So, did you stay with Carolina?" Like the main curiosity is the soap opera twist, the spicy plot twist that makes everything juicier. Truth is, nothing is as simple as it looks from the outside. Me and Carolina, for a while, were 2 wrecks trying to lean on each other. But wreckage isn't built to support anything. There was guilt, family pressure, awkward silence at Sunday lunches, the realization that no matter how much feeling there was, it all grew on a minefield. We tried to be normal, a couple, a second chance, but there was always a ghost sitting at the table with us. One day, she looked at me and said, "Maybe we met at the wrong time, in the wrong way." It hurt, but it made sense. Because in the end, this isn't the story of a guy who got cheated on and got revenge by being with his ex's sister. It's the story of someone who tried desperately to hold on to some kind of love in the middle of rubble, and only later realized he was using the same broken bricks to build a place to live. Finale. Today, I live alone. In a small, quiet apartment with no dramatic soundtrack, no big scenes. The bed that was once my marriage bed is dismantled, leaning against a wall in the bedroom, waiting to be sold or donated. It took me a while to make that decision. For a long time, that pile of wood and screws was like a monument to the war. I lived outside the uniform. Sometimes I'd walk into the room, run my hand along the wood, and remember everything. The day we picked the mattress in the store, the laughs, the nights when I was sure I was loved, and the afternoon I learned I wasn't. One day, I opened the window. The wind came in, cold, carrying the distant sounds of the city. Buses, people talking, life moving. I looked at the dismantled bed, the mattress leaning against the wall, the folded blue sheet in the closet that I never used again. That's when it really hit me. I spent months trying to decide if what I did with Carolina was revenge or healing. In the end, I realized it was a bit of both and, at the same time, neither entirely, because there's no revenge that gives back innocence, no action that erases the first time you see someone you love betraying you, and there's no relationship that comes out whole when it starts on the remains of another. What exists is choice. The choice to not define yourself only by what was done to you, nor only by what you did in response. I rested my hand on the dismantled bed and, for the first time, didn't feel anger or longing. Just a light kind of tiredness, like the end of a shift. That night, I listed the bed on a selling website. Low price, buyer picks it up. I bought a simple mattress, set it on the floor, spread a plain white sheet over it. No history, no familiar scent. I lay down there, alone, and listened to the silence. A silence different from the one after the betrayal. No longer the silence of humiliation. It was the silence of a beginning. The war that marked me most wasn't the one I lived in uniform, surrounded by dust and gunfire. It was the war I lived barefoot, in a bed I thought was my safe place. Today, if someone asks what I learned from all this, I don't have some self-help phrase ready. All I can say is that the one thing I don't want anymore is to live in a battlefield disguised as a home. Maybe one day I'll buy another double bed, maybe not. For now, I'm learning to sleep in peace with myself. And for the first time in a long time, that feels like story enough.